This is From Worry to Wealth, the podcast that shatters the myths and mystique surrounding wealth creation. As students, our schools and universities often neglect the crucial education on the core financial principles. I'm Ben Lyons. I'm a business owner, investor, entrepreneur, and author, and I'm joined by my business partner, Alex Fink. And together, we're here to inspire your journey towards improving your financial self. In a world buzzing with advice on the behaviors and mindset to become wealthy, we'll share proven processes tried and tested by our network of successful collaborators. So get ready to move past worry and move towards wealth and your improved financial self. Hi there. Welcome back to another podcast episode of From Worry to Wealth. And I am really excited to be with you. We have a special guest, but before I do that, let me introduce my co-host, Alex Fink.
Good day, everybody.
And we really have a special treat for you. A great guy, giving us a lot of advice. Not that he's older than us, but his name is Frank Genovese, and I'm really excited. We're going to let him share his story. Maybe not talk about his golf game so much, but he'll talk about his life and business career. And without further ado, Frank is with us on Zoom. So Frank, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So Frank, you met me and Alex, was it 3 years ago? Something like that, you think?
Yeah, almost 4, yes.
Almost 4. Geez, time flies. And you've got some incredible, I think the first meeting I had, I think I remember calling Alex and saying, you know, I just had breakfast with Frank and it went so long, we got into lunch. And it was really fascinating. I think we could have gone all the way to dinner, but very, very fascinating story about your whole background. And this podcast episode that Alex and I do is really centered around how somebody gets where they are. And there are a lot of young people that ask, well, how do I get there financially, or how do I get there from a business perspective? And I like to say, when you're 60 like me, it's easy to explain how we got here, but looking into the future, it's much harder to really describe that. So what we want to do is cover really your background and who influenced you and some of the decisions you've made, and really just tell some of the great stories that got you where you are. And you can share what you want about your level of success. But I know you did at one point, you owned and controlled, I think you had a controlling interest in AMF Bowling. Is that right?
That is correct.
So I like to share that because I think many of
For
us
all the bowlers,
we've gone bowling before,
Yeah,
and
sure.
I assume that many of our viewers and listeners would know it. But why don't you take us back? You can go back. Alex used to take us back from when you were born, if you want. I don't.
Yeah, I used to say
The bowling message is just because you own it doesn't mean you can do it.
Yeah,
Right. That's true.
right.
That's true.
Or be good.
Yeah.
Or be good at it.
Right. Well, you start wherever you want to start, and I've heard your stories, and I think they're fascinating. So go for it.
Well, I believe it starts really in your childhood. And so I was born in Brooklyn and until I was 12, and my father was moved to Hartford, Connecticut. So we grew up in Hartford. I'd like to say we were a lower middle class family. We had money for food and things, but not much else. So I had to work a lot when I was a kid. 100 house paper route and babysitting and lawns, etc. Went to Catholic school, which was back then was a little bit of stretch for the family because it was extra money. I did average in high school. I was on the football team, and I was overweight. And from that experience, I learned I was always underestimated by what I could do, and my grades were only average. And I knew I was better than that. I never tested well. And so when I went to go to college, I got into UConn, but I had to take the SATs 3 times to get in. And so most of my life was, I might not be the brightest bulb, but I always outworked everybody. So that's lesson number 1. you know, anybody who considers himself average intelligence, it turns out I'm probably got a little more than I think I have. But you have the chance to outwork everybody all the time. If they go home at 5, you go home at 6. If they come in at 8, you come in at 7:30. You know, it's simple things. And it's also quiet work because nobody's around. So you'll get a lot more done. So I did a year in college. I like to say I had either a C minus or a D plus average, 1.4 or 1.6. I can't remember.
Wow. Holy cow.
I was 17 going into college, and I was too young, basically. And this was 1965, 66. So I quit college and joined the Marine Corps. I was now 18 years old, and I joined on purpose because I would show everybody that I could join the hardest service and succeed. So the reason I talk about my childhood is that's where I gained. It could be a chip on the shoulder, it could be whatever it is, but it what drove me on later in life to show everybody that I was as good or better than them, and that I could outwork them. So I joined the Marine Corps. I joined to go to war. So I went to Vietnam. I spent a couple of tours there. Came back, got out of the Marine Corps. Went back to college. I initially went into college as an engineer curriculum because back in the 60s, America needed a lot of engineers. So everybody became an engineer. But I couldn't understand half the engineering stuff. So I went back into finance, and I got a bachelor's of science in finance. And the first semester I had a 3.0, and then I had 5 4.0s.
Nice.
So I attribute that to age and having seen the world a little more. So the first tip I'd give to anybody who's listening, and they're not going to want to hear it, is when you graduate high school, do something else first. I recommend the service. You can go in for 2 years, any military service, and what you get to see is a whole lot of different people, and some really, really good. The senior officers are usually very, very good, but you'll see a lot of people that come from different walks of life. And what the Marine Corps taught me was I didn't want to be what most of them were going to be, which was going to be, we had 500,000 people in the Marine Corps. They grew it from 120,000. So we were getting all forms of people and where they came from. And most of them, I didn't want to have their lives. They were going to go back. They were never going to travel. They were not going to get more education. And they were going to be good middle class people, but I wanted to do more. I was going to prove to everybody else I could do more. So I met my future wife, who we're still married 55 years. I met her my freshman year, my sophomore year in college. We dated that year. I worked midnight to 8 full time and went to school full-time days. This is another lesson. That's outworking everybody. So I had a full curriculum, and I worked, and I dated. But
Frank, when did you sleep? When did you sleep?
This was in Hartford.
Yeah, but when did you sleep?
I had 2 or 3 hours sleep a night. I also had to date my wife.
Wow.
So I'd go over to her
midnight to 8 in the morning.
I'd go over to her apartment about 8 o'clock at night, date an hour, and sleep until almost
There you go. Okay. I think I know what dating means in that context. Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
Now, luckily, back then, I was a computer operator. Now, back then, the computer was a Burroughs, and the Burroughs computer was as big as the room you're in. And what you did was feed cards into the Burroughs. That was the software. It was these 80-column cards, trays of them all night. You'd feed in for 2 hours, and then you'd sit there and let the machine do the work. Your cell phone does more than 10 of those Burroughs machines would ever do. But that gave me time to study. So I could study at work. And then they promoted me about a year later to putting tape reels on a UNIVAC machine. And I couldn't study anymore, so I had to quit. I needed the time to study. So then I got a job at midnight to 8 at a 7-Eleven store. And let me tell you, a lot of weird people come into
midnight to 8.
Yeah. After midnight.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
But again, I had time to study, and I became known as the Sandwich King because they had a full deli, and the biggest sandwich ever made was like that.
That's a good title for the episode, The
Right.
Sandwich King.
All right.
Can we title it The Sandwich King?
Called The Sandwich.
The Sandwich King. Go ahead.
So now I'm going to graduate college, and what am I going to do? And this is now 60. Now I went back in 69, so 3 more years, 72. And my wife says, well, why don't you get an MBA? And I said, what is that? Yeah, I did not grow up on the side of the tracks that knew about MBAs. Back then, there were probably no more than, say, 50 MBA programs in the US. There's now 1,100, something like that. And everybody heard of Harvard and Wharton back then. I remember there's no internet, there's no cell phones. You go to the library to find stuff out.
Wait, Frank, what's a library?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And discovered, first off, I took the GMATs, which is the SATs to get into MBA school. It's graduate business something, or graduate master's. And I got a 550. And then I had only a 3.0. And so I've discovered, I still don't know how the math worked, because even a 1.5 and all those 4.0s should be more than a 3.0.
Right.
But that's all it was in the end. That's a lesson too. Anybody with kids that are going into college, tell your kids freshman year, study your butt off. Don't play around. Get the biggest grades you can, because then you can mess around second year.
Right.
You can't seem to bring that first year low average back up.
For sure.
So I looked around. Harvard back then, the application was, I think, $100, $150, which was a lot of money back then. And I knew I wouldn't get in. And so I looked around for other schools. I applied to William and Mary, which was only a 1-year program at the time. The University of Texas at Austin, which was almost starting up. Indiana, University of Indiana, and the Virginia School, which was about 10 years old. All of them were 2-year except William and Mary. I got into the other 3, but Virginia decided that, Virginia at the time had to have an interview in person, and faculty had to interview you, not students. Now it's totally different. Students interview. They still require an interview. So I went down. I got a nice jacket and a tie, which I didn't have back then. And I interviewed with 3 faculty, and I got in. My class was only 105. It's a 2-year program, and we graduated only 90. So back then they would actually flunk people out. Also, it is still known as the most rigorous MBA program in the United States. But we've changed from a 6-day week down to a 5-day week, down to a 4-day week, and we're still the most rigorous MBA program in the country. So you can imagine what the other schools are doing.
Right.
So I got in. I did real well because I have a gift of gab that was not appreciated in undergrad, but it was appreciated in business school. This was a case method school. There's only 2 or 3 left in the country where you actually study business cases, and they want your class participation. So I class participated my way into, they don't give you grades, but you kind of find out where you were ranking. So I was probably in the top 5. But they don't release rankings even today. They don't do it. And so that summer, my wife now moved down with me. She's a math major, Russian minor, Phi Beta Kappa in math, a pianist and an artist. So she's really, really good. And she became an actuary. And so we moved to Charlottesville. She got a job in Richmond where her parents were. And she'd go down on Mondays and work 5 days at an insurance company, come back Fridays. And once again, I have plenty of time to study because I don't have her at home. Business school includes usually study groups. So you were with 5 other people and you'd meet every night and go over the cases for the next day. And I was a pain in the butt because I was always done at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. And these guys say, no, we're not meeting till 7 or 8 because they waited to the end. Once again, I outworked them. So the summer jobs back then were hard to get. And so I got a job with the executive education department at the MBA school. And so I was kind of a gopher, and I did special projects for the school. One of the projects was to try and figure out from the application only to the MBA school, could you tell who would succeed at the school? And so I got to look at the records of 3 or 4 years worth and put a computer statistical model in place. And the answer was no. But one of the years I got to look at was my own. And I got to see my application, and I got to see the messages written from those 3 interviews from the faculty. And 2 of them said, no,
Oh,
don't
wow.
let them in. Don't let them in.
Wow.
And a third one, the head of admissions called Mr. Snook. He said, possible diamond in the rough, let them in.
Ah.
And that really has caused a lifetime love for the school. And the school has been rewarded many times over for that. I did real well second year, and you're now looking for a job. Right now, the whole world has changed. Jobs back then, you got interviews started January, February, you got a job April or May to start in the summer. Now they're actually getting their second year job offers at the beginning of their first semester, first year. It's changed that much.
Yeah.
And so that's why they're giving them Fridays off for interviews. And they have to teach the kids how to interview. Remember my 550 and 3PO, 3.0. The school now averages 720 for people in and 3.8 or 9.
Yeah.
Or 3.6 to 8. So
Well, I wouldn't get in for sure.
I couldn't get in today.
Right.
Again, it has a near and dear place in my heart, and the way Susan and I have rewarded the school is trying to find people like me, because for the first 20 years, 25 years after I got out, it was people like me that built them a brand new campus.
Right.
And now 50 to 60% of the grads go investment banking or private equity or consulting. So it's a whole different world. Our class was our only degree was general management, but now you have a specialty in finance or a specialty in marketing, especially in this, and this. So the whole MBA world changed. It changed because of rankings when rankings started. Darden is actually the #1 public MBA program in the world, according to some people. It's always in the top 10. The professors and the way it's taught is usually #1 by Princeton. So anyway, that's enough on Darden. So I'm looking for a job. I go, I interview. Back then, banks, regular lending banks were the ones that are going to hire a bunch of MBAs. Also back then, you didn't get investment banking, you didn't get consulting. Those 2 areas, they only went to Ivy League schools. So Wall Street was just full of Ivy League people, nobody from the other schools. So I interviewed Citicorp and all other banks that don't exist anymore. Manufacturers Hanover, First Chicago, Continental Illinois, and one other one. I got job offers from all of them. Got to travel to great cities, and they entertain you. And the last interview was Citicorp. And at the end of every interview, I always asked, how did I do? And the Citicorp interviewer said, you don't look like a banker. I had a nice gray herringbone suit on with a conservative tie. And I took it to heart. It's now April, and I'm going to graduate in May. So I asked a couple of professors, I don't want to be a banker. One guy said, you want to be a controller? And I said, no, I hate accounting. And he gave me a tip that everybody should understand. A good controller is not an accountant. A good controller understands that business maybe better than anybody, because every single dollar in and every single dollar out comes through his hands or her hands. And as I became a controller, absolutely right. So I interviewed. 2 companies were left, American Can and Continental Can. I got job offers from both. American Can wanted you to be a financial analyst at corporate headquarters, and Continental Can wanted you to be in the corrugated box division to be a controller of a corrugated box plant. So I took that. We moved to Connecticut. I didn't know how to be a controller, so my wife got a job. They sent me to Boston to learn how to be a controller for 6 months, came home on weekends. Then they sent us out to Columbus, Ohio, where I became a controller. It was each corrugated box plant, there was 20 of them. They have to be regional because shipping corrugated is shipping air, if you think about it. And so you could fill a tractor trailer and you can't get the 40,000 pounds you're allowed or 20,000. You get nothing. So they put these giant corrugated machines around the country. And each plant does about 10 million. This plant was losing $1 million a year. And the guy, I wanted to be controller for this company because everything was decentralized. Each plant was a real business. General manager, sales manager, production manager, and controller. So the week I arrived, they fired the guy who hired me. Then they fired the sales manager. And for the next 4 or 5 months, the production manager and I ran the plant as well, the whole business, which again, great experience. Now, a lesson from this, I always wanted to be a general manager. I knew I would not be a good employee. So I went out in life to get the experience to be a general manager. And I didn't care where it was, what industry it was in, or what they made me do.
Why did you know or think you wanted to be a general manager?
And why did you know you wouldn't be a good employee?
I wanted to run stuff.
Oh, you wanted to run stuff.
I wanted to be the boss.
That's why I wouldn't be a good employee, right? Yeah, because he wanted to run things. Yeah.
You needed to be the boss.
I wanted to be the boss. And a part of that was from the military, where you just see, I don't suffer fools easily.
Frank, who's the boss of your household?
Well, we know the answer.
That's a hesitation right there.
But we do negotiate. I don't win a lot, though.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
And all the way back from really the high school, all the way through so far, I knew I needed to be the boss, to run something. Because most people I ran into, they're not going to work as hard as me. And in the Marine Corps, I hate to say it, but you ran into a lot of fools, and I don't suffer fools. If they don't want to work and they don't want to think about things and they don't want to get any kind of thought process going, I don't need to be around them. And therefore, at least I'll be up here and I can put people around me that want to be like me. So we're in Columbus, Ohio. And a year later, we had the plant almost breaking even, just the two of us. They brought in a new sales manager, a new general manager. So I called. I had a mentor back in Connecticut where we went. And I said, I'm ready now. I understand the business. I want to run a plant. You got 20 of them. And they had hired 3 MBAs to become controllers to give them chances to run plants. Because in the past, it was always manufacturing or sales. And they all failed. None of the plants really made much money. And so I said, I'm ready. No, you're not. You're not ready yet. You've only been with us a year. He says, we got a project for you, though. We'll send you to California. And you're not going to move there. But you're going to spend 6 months out there, and you're going to decide whether we should double the size of the current plant or build a new one. So every 2 weeks, I go out there for 2 weeks. I come back home for a weekend and go back out again. We decided to double the size of the plant. It's okay. Now I'm ready now. I've done what you wanted. I want to run a plant. No. Come back to headquarters, but don't move. So once again, this was a weekend thing. So Ohio to Connecticut and back. Meanwhile, my wife gets pregnant in between there. We have 1 kid back in Columbus, Ohio. And they wanted me to put in a strategic plan for the $200 million division, which they never had. Lessons from here and learn, large public companies really are not run well. Let's say old-time manufacturing companies are not run well. I don't know what AI is going to do, but all the companies I bought since then, too, they're not run well because they solve problems by throwing people at them instead of trying to figure out the process that could make it more efficient. And Continental was just like that. This division was 200 million. They never had a strategic plan. I mean, it's crazy. So I put one in, and the end result of it was they needed to move valuable assets making no money in the East, Rochester, Buffalo, Albany, New York, down to the Sun Belt, which was the South. That was the phrase back then, Sun Belt. So they said, go ahead and close those 3 plants. I'm 25 years old. I'm taking on unions. Think of the experience I'm getting.
Oh,
Remember,
right.
because I didn't care. I wanted general management experience. Later on, I named that, by the way. It's being a general manager is a 3-legged stool. And you have to, before you become one, you have to go out and get the experience for 2 of the legs. One is finance and control, one is sales and marketing, and one is operations. And I ended up having 2 of them by the time I left Continental Camp. Again, I hadn't thought through that 3 legs of the stool until I started teaching at Darden. But that's really what I obtained. So, so I put in the plan, took on the union. They all walked out. We built 3 plants down south. And now I'm ready to run a plant. Yeah, I've been with you a couple of years. They said, no, you're not old enough, and you don't have the right experience. I said, okay. He said, you haven't been in sales and you haven't been in manufacturing. So what do you want? Well, meanwhile, my mentor was fired. They're not going to do the controller thing anymore. So now I'm talking to the VP of the division. He says, you want to go? I said, I want to go in manufacturing. He says, no, you want to go in sales. I said, okay. I really didn't care because I wanted the experience. So they moved us to South New Jersey, and I worked out of the Philadelphia plant. Again, $10 million, losing $1 million. I'm in sales. I'm selling corrugated boxes in South New Jersey and Baltimore. I'm doing very well. And my mouth got me in trouble. It's a whole different story on why they fired me. I was walking in to get promoted, and instead they fired me instead. So I go back to Connecticut to my guy, and I said, Jim is his name. He said, look, you look elsewhere in Continental Can. You can't work in corrugated boxes because if a guy hires you, you might get him fired. You might close his plant down, and you're known for being a rabble-rouser. I said, okay. So the only jobs at Continental were New York City. I think they were on 5th Avenue, 3rd
Now
Avenue.
I see why you didn't want to be an employee, because it sounds
a
like
rabble
you're
rouser, right?
Right.
Yeah.
An uncontrolled human being.
Yeah.
Sounds like.
Yeah. Shake things up. That's what you need.
So now I have sales and marketing, finance and control. So there was no way I was going to have a 2-hour.
And a little HR experience too, Frank, with the firing. Go ahead. Yeah.
There's no such thing as HR.
Yeah.
I'll overpay you to work extra hard.
There you go.
But you have to keep promises.
Yeah.
And I never forget a number. Anyway, so we weren't going to commute to New York City, and we weren't going to move except to a nice place. So my wife and I, we have 1 child. We decided let's pick Richmond, Virginia. We've seen Ohio, Connecticut. I've seen California. There's no way I'd move out there. And so I go to Richmond to look for a job. Meanwhile, the VP of the division was nice enough to leave me on the payroll for 2 or 3 months. Now, Richmond, Virginia back then, now this is 1978 or 9. They had just gotten liquor by the drink in the state of Virginia in 1970. So it's a pretty backwards town at the time. I'm making about 30,000. Yeah. And I had I interviewed all around, but you had to know people then. Luckily, I went to the University of Virginia. And there was 1 or 2 people that really ran the city, and I got into them to get interviews. And nobody panned me, but the job offers were, yes, we want somebody with 5 years experience with an MBA, and you'll be director of strategic planning for this $1 billion business, and we'll pay you $16,000. And I said, no, I can't do that. Wow. So I got a letter in the mail one day. There's no internet still, remember. There's no cell phones. You hear from people by mail. So I got a letter from a guy named Bill Goodwin. He was a Darden grad from 68, and I'm 74. He said, I'm looking for an MBA, been out of school 5 years. I've got 2 jobs. One's a general management job, and one is sales. So I run down on a Friday, spend most of the day with him. And the sales job was Bill invented third-party computer leasing, big hardware computer leasing. Up till then, if you want an IBM machine leased, you had to go to IBM. UNIVAC, you went to UNIVAC. The others, there's only 3 back then. I think Spurry Rand was another one. Bill said, well, why don't I just buy a computer, get financing, and find a customer? Well, he did that and invented third-party leasing. So he was looking for salespeople to do that. And I said, I want to do that. I said, I want to wear a coat and tie. You know. And he said, no. Your resume says you want to be a general manager. I got this general manager job. I said, yeah, Bill, but it's running a KOA campground at Virginia Beach. And I said, Bill, I hate camping. I was in the Marine Corps. I don't want any more camping. He says, look, I just bought it. It's a big business. I have 800 campsites. I don't know what to do with it. By the way, it still exists. It's at the end of General Book Boulevard in Virginia Beach. So I said, okay, Bill. He says, here's the deal, he told me. He says, look, you go down there and build a house, hire a general manager. That guy will report to you. Come back up here. I've got a little bit of money. You'll go out and search for businesses to buy, and you can run them all. I said, whoa, of course, I'll take that job. So I lived in an Airstream trailer. My wife moved to Richmond. We bought a house. She came and visited me 3 times. I came home 3 or 4 times, all in a 6-month period. We had, as I said, 800 campsites, 24 bathrooms, 100 acres, swimming pools, tennis courts, a retail store. We took no credit cards. It was all cash. And we did $1 million in 100 days of all cash. So I'm learning cash control. I'm learning the employees were 50 people. I could pay below minimum wage because the outdoor people who did the lawn and garden stuff were considered farm workers. So you don't have to hire college kids, but you had to have some smart people taking the cash. At a retail store, so all the buying and selling, you have to worry about that inventory. So I learned all that. My day was 6 a.m. till 2 a.m. because we would have 1,000 or 2,000 people a night on our campsite.
Wow.
It was a destination campsite. A lot of Canadians. As an aside, I invented new types of camping. I had field camping for a discount if you had your own tent. If you wanted shade, I sold shade. That was extra. And we did, I'm trying to think of the number. I think we did almost $10,000 a week in quarters in the soda machines.
Wow.
It's hot down there in the summer.
Yeah,
all quarters. So anyway, I hired a person. He ran it and went back to Richmond. And now I'm looking for businesses to buy. Now this is the 70s, if anybody's old enough. Inflation, we think it's high now. It was 15%, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And the prime rate went to 21. So Bill liked campgrounds, so I looked around for major campgrounds. Myrtle Beach had 2 5,000 site motorhome campgrounds. They weren't for sale. We tried to buy Sea Pines at Hilton Head. That wasn't for sale. And it got frustrating. After a year, again, all this research is in the library, remember? And there's no computers, so all the numbers are on 14-column paper, and you're working your tail off. And I would present stuff to Bill, and in the first 5 or 10 minutes, he'd rip it apart, and as a learning lesson, and it got very frustrating because you've heard of people say he's always right. Well, the problem was Bill is always right, and he was. And he's the smartest man I've ever met to this day. He has present value tables in his head. And so I learned a lot, but it gets frustrating. So Susan and I went on vacation. I quit Bill and quit smoking on the same day. This is now 79, probably. I lose a year right around here. And I want to still be a general manager. So I'm in Richmond, Virginia. I look around. Coopers and Lybrand hired me to be a management consultant to small business. And so I met a lot of people through that job, stayed about a year. He paid me $35,000 and I brought him in about $80,000. So he was happy with me. And through that, I did some work for a small investment bank, and they had a company for sale. It was called Sampson Paint. It was in Richmond, Virginia. Once again, I never cared about an industry, and I still don't care what industry, as long as it makes something. I'm not a service industry person. So they introduced me to the Sampson sisters. They were 79 years old and 82 years old. They inherited the business when their father died. And their dividends had stopped and they didn't know why. And basically it was out of business. Did 6.5 million, made no money. I was introduced to them. I had a partner. We were going to be 50-50. He was a classmate of mine. He was going to do sales and marketing. I would do manufacturing and finance and control. And the night we were going to meet the sellers, he backed out. And I needed his $50,000 to go with my $50,000 so we could have 100 to put down. And plus I'm Italian in Richmond, Virginia, in a town where there were not many Italians. And these were first family of Virginia ladies. But
why did he pull out, Frank? Why did he back out?
I don't know. And he chickened out basically.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You know, we were betting everything we had.
Yeah.
And I got permission from my wife. We were going to bet everything we had. We'll either be millionaires in 2 or 3 years, or I'll go get a job as an MBA again. That was the bet. And so I was introduced to somebody, put in another 50. They only wanted 25% ownership. I bought Sampson Paint. I turned it around. It lost $700,000 a year, just the year before I bought it. I turned it around to plus 100,000. I borrowed $1 million at the banks with 100,000 in equity. You could do that back. And 10 to 1, you could do it back.
Yeah.
I paid prime plus 4 when prime was 20.
Wow.
And it was asset-based lending. And every Friday I had to give them the good receivables I had, the good inventory I had, and that would establish what I could borrow next week. And they got all the cash, obviously, every day.
Yeah.
So I turned it around. I sold it. I got a little tired of it. One of the lessons I learned back then, for every company, there's a certain size you need to have one really, really great person, whether it's the person running it or whatever. And back then, at a $6.5 million, I grew it back. I shrunk it to 4 and grew it back to 6.5. And back then, 6.5 million could only afford one really great person, and that was me. And I had a controller who was really an accountant. I had a salesman, a vice president of sales who was really a glorified salesperson. And I got tired of doing everything. So I sold it, got some money, called up Bill. And I said, Bill, I want to own a bigger business. You want to be my partner? He said, sure. I came downtown, stayed at his office. Again, libraries, still no computers to speak of, no databases. So I rode around, we tell this story. I rode around industrial places, looking for businesses, names of them, counting cars, and looking up what they did. And we figured $100,000 in revenue per car, and that got us the size of the business. And the Wall Street Journal had an ad, had an article on a guy named Irwin Jacobs in Minneapolis. He was a corporate raider. He had just raided AMF, the public company. They did $1 billion, made no money, and he bought it at book value, which you could do back then. And he was selling off the pieces. So I found a piece in Richmond, Virginia. And so I called him, and he answered the phone. And I said, we'd really like to buy Union Machinery that you have here. He said, look, we're going to sell it, but we're not ready yet. We're going to sell it internally and not have investment bankers. Keep in touch. So the selling book came. We looked at it. The book value was about $22.5 million. It made no money, did $35 million in revenue, and there was no way we were going to pay that. So Bill and I called up. I said, Irwin, we'd like to come see you. He said, sure. We fly out to see Irwin, trying to get around the bidding process that was about to start. We had $1 million check in our hand, and he didn't see us. And we saw him there, and they basically said he's not there. See his number 2 guy. So we walk into number 2. Apparently they do this. And we basically said, look, we're interested in seeing Irwin. We'll see you later. We're not interested in talking to you. So we went back to Richmond. Before we even got on the plane, there was a call from their office to our office saying, we really apologize. You can go buy the business tomorrow. You can go see the business tomorrow. So we spent Bill and I went over, big plant. I think they had 500 people. And Bill stayed till about 10 o'clock, and we've done this again after this. And said, look, I'm going to leave Frank here, and he'll report back to me, and we'll figure out what we want to do. So I spent the whole day into the night. I took the controller to lunch and dinner, which is a life lesson. If you're going to buy a business, take the controller to dinner. The controller knows everything, and he's worried that you'll be his new boss, and he'll tell you everything. And we learned that their balance sheet was just full of crud. And Irwin had promised that I'll give you a clean balance sheet. And so I found about 10 million worth of stuff. No, this company, 2022, about $7 million worth of questionable stuff on the balance sheet. And I call Irwin back. I said, Irwin, we really would like to own this business, but your balance sheet's junk. He said, hold it. I don't know any of that stuff. I'll call you back. So he hangs up. And that was in the morning. The afternoon, it's 2 o'clock. He calls back. He said, look, I still don't have any answers, but I'm not subtracting 7 million from the price. He says, what's your best price? What's your best offer? So I said, let me talk to Bill. So I put him on hold. We go inside. And Bill, he wants to know what we'll pay. So we wrote down on a piece of paper, the numbers. And we came out, Irwin will pay you 17.5. He said, you got it.
Wow, that was quick.
And he hadn't sold anything yet. So we bought the first. He wanted the world to know he's going to sell the pieces off and get good prices. So we bought AMF Union Machinery. I went in there as president. I shrunk it down from 500 people to about 350. We had 2 locations. We made it 1 location. I did 35 million and broke even. The first year we owned it, it did 32 million and made 5.5 million in EBITDA.
Wow.
My expertise now, I'll name myself, I'm a turnaround manager. I learned it at Continental Can. I learned how not to run plants. Very important. I then did Sampson Paint on my own, and I turned that around. And now I turned around AMF Union Machinery, it's called. It still exists. Along the way, AMF Bowling came for sale. Irwin said, I'm never going to sell it, but he decided to sell it. So Bill and I got in the race for that with 2 other partners. And we became one of the 3 finalists. He was selling it himself again without investment bankers. And we thought we would win it. Bill already owned 20 bowling centers, so he understood the business. I understood all the manufacturing. We made all the bowling equipment you see. We also had distribution, bowls, bags, and shoes. We're in 13 countries with our bowling centers as well as distribution. We thought we would win. We got a call one day saying, sorry, none of the 3 people are going to get it. Clayton and Dublier, private equity firm in New York, will pay my price and you guys won't. I'm selling it to them. So 5 months later, that deal never went through. I kept calling every week. Finally, they said, okay, look, we'll send you these guys are trying to screw us. We'll send you the documents done by their lawyer. Therefore, they're in your favor. If you'll sign them on Monday, you can buy the business.
What was the price?
Give us your best price.
What was the price, Frank?
He wanted 235 million.
And this was what year?
85.
Okay.
Yeah. I could be off a year. There's a bunch of cases written at Darden about this. So I'm on vacation. I come home. This is when fax machines is how you got stuff. So 180 pages came fax on chemical paper that had to be copied. I'm coming back from New Jersey. I get it. I read it all day, all night. Bill and I meet Sunday morning, and there's no way we can pay the price. We had it where maybe we could pay $210, maybe $215. It just wasn't worth it. It didn't make a lot of money. Had a good bunch of assets. So we call Erwin, we need another day. Can we come up Tuesday? He said, sure. So we get on the plane going to New York, three of us and one attorney, guy that's going to run all the bowling centers. I'm going to run the whole company. Bill's there as chairman, and one lawyer who said they were an international law firm, but they lied. Back then, we hired 13 law firms to close the deal, one in every country.
Wow.
The documents had to be in the local language and yours.
Wow.
The pile of paperwork would go 2 times to your ceiling, and it cost millions and millions of dollars. Anyway, we met with Erwin's people. Erwin never met with us. They said, we said, look, the contract's okay, and we dealt with the same 2 people when we bought Union Machinery. So we knew them, we trusted them, and they trusted us. That's very important. If you're ever going to do deals, make sure your first deal is done as ethically and on time, and that allows your second deal to go as smooth as anything, because people will lend you money, they'll believe what you tell them, and so that was happening here, except they couldn't give us the 8 or 9 things we really needed. So this is Tuesday. Bill, again, we went up. Bill left me, so I'm going to leave Frank, and I'm going to negotiate with Jim and a guy named Weinstein all week. Jim Farrell was his corporate counsel, was Erwin Jacobs. Now, they're a public company that own this. A company called Minstar owns this. So they got to be careful what they say. So the greatest negotiating technique I've ever learned, I learned this week. Anytime I asked for anything, their answer was no. That's it. It's hard to negotiate against no.
Yeah.
All day, into the night. This is the roaring 80s. This law firm was in the GE building, it still is, across from the Plaza Hotel. I'm there till 1 o'clock in the morning every night. No, Erwin won't want that. Erwin won't allow that. It's now Friday morning, 2 a.m. By the way, they're open 24 hours doing deals. There's a chef, 2 wine cellars, 2 dining rooms. This Wall Street was a factory then, and LBOs had just come in. You can borrow a lot of money against assets.
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning, I got the first yes. So obviously Erwin was getting tired of it too. So we outlasted him, and we got the deal done in the next hour. So we were short of a little money. Erwin gave us some paper, some notes to take back. We closed the deal. We figured out along the way, Erwin really wanted book value plus 10 million. He could tell the world, see, I bought for book value. I made 10 million selling AMF Bowling, and I'm going to do that again and again. The problem was his book value. Remember, he honest as the day is long. Reputation horrible. Irv the liquidator, because that's how he made his first money.
For sure.
But we knew they were honest people, and we knew we only buy good book value. So the 225 we knew was about 210. So we're now down to a price of 220. And so basically we paid 220, except we owned all the foreign. We're going to go too long. I'm sorry, but we're going to own all the currencies in these 13 countries until we could bring them back. Well, we didn't know about currencies because we were buying assets worldwide, no stock, and they had to convert their holding companies. 1 year later, we got all the cash back, and it was worth $5 million more, just because of what happened to the currencies.
Right, the exchange rate.
Pure luck. Pure
How
luck.
did you finance it, Frank? How did you guys come up with the money to purchase it?
We rehocked AMF Union Machinery, which was now making $5.5 million.
Makes
so we
sense.
borrowed against that. Bill came up with some extra cash. AMF had enormous assets that Erwin didn't understand. We borrowed over $100 million on leases and notes receivables, and we arbitraged it. They were all written in the 70s, 15 to 18%. We borrowed at 10%.
Wow.
And by the way, that's the other income below your EBITDA line.
Right.
So we deal in EBITDA. All the rest of the world thinks about, price earnings ratios. It means nothing to us. It's a cash flow. We're in the cash flow business. So I run that for 3 or 4 years. My deal was, and I got a little more sweat equity. We rolled in the other company. We rolled into 20 bowling centers. That all had equity that came in. And I ended up owning about 17.5%. I owned, 75% of
The paint
Sampson
company.
Paint. I owned 50% of Union Machinery. And by the time we rolled everything in, I owned 17.5%. Another lesson. Doesn't matter. If you're going to run it, though, you better have something in writing that gives you the authority, which I did. I had a 2-page letter with Bill that basically, if he wanted to tell me how to run AMF Bowling, I'm gone. He can come in. And he didn't want to run it. So I turned it around. The next lesson is when you create a P&L, but create it by product line. In our case, they lumped it all together because they didn't care. They reported it to corporate, and it became a PE in the marketplace. But when I took out bowling centers, and then I put manufacturing next to that, and the notes and receivables over here, I had 3 businesses. And from my experience of turning around, I knew how many accountants I needed. I knew how many staff I needed. I just knew it from the past. That's what I learned. So the lesson there is, if you're going to be a turnaround person, never do it on your own dollar. You want to work for 1 or 2 people first and do a turnaround on somebody else's dollar, because you'll learn a lot. Then you can do it on your own dollar. So from that, we learned we were losing $10 million a year just in manufacturing. We broke that even the first year, made 10 the next year, 10 the next year. So now we're making 20 over there. Plenty of cash flow to carry the debt from the notes and receivables. My deal was a 3-year deal. I walked away. Bill bought me out. Another lesson, I didn't have a price in the buyout. We didn't have a buyout agreement. The stock market crashed the week before he and I negotiated the price earnings ratio he'd used to pay for my stock. Wow. So I got a little less than I thought, but I was gone. I was also probably burned out. 3 years. If you're a turnaround person, it's 100 hours a week. It's the weekends. My wife raised all the children. Thank goodness she was good at it. I was not home for their first 10 years. So now I've got more money, and I've decided I'm going to go out. I'm going to buy small businesses. My first plan was I'll own 5 and pay attention to one of them each day of the week. That didn't work out, but I ended up buying 3 or 4 more. And I was going to be a chairman like Bill. I was not going to be president anymore. I never had an office in any of them because I believe presidents should be allowed to run their businesses. Now, there'll be a budget meeting once a year. It'll be a B+ budget. And for that, they'll earn, the senior management and above will earn 110% of the market price for their job if they make their budget. But it's a B+ budget. Anyway, so I bought a company called PDI, Power Distribution Inc., and I finally found the right president after 3. I tried MBAs, that didn't work. I owned it 20 years. I bought a company. The only company that failed was a company I bought that wasn't a turnaround. It was called Agritech. It made packing equipment, huge lines for fresh fruit and vegetables. I put in 2 presidents there, and it got wiped out by China, of all things, and the fresh fruit market, which was our customers, the packers of fresh fruit. Right. China decided to conquer the market in apples. They planted millions and millions of trees. They couldn't get their apples to market, so they made apple concentrate out of it, and so they grabbed the apple juice market. There then was, I think this was 08, was there a worldwide crisis in 08 maybe, or 98, where all the currencies crashed? Russia's ruble did it.
Yeah, it was the European debt crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
that was January of 99.
And so my customers were using their bad apples for 10 or 15%
2000.
of their revenue with concentrate. They couldn't do it. And they were shipping 10 or 15% overseas, where a red delicious apple, which was only grown here, would be $2 or $3 in Singapore.
Right.
Yeah, maybe 20 cents here. So they're getting wiped out. That's me. I closed it down. I sold off what I could. Let's see, after that, a couple of startups after that. PDI still exists. I started a company called Here Comes the Bus. We put technology on school buses. It was with a Darden MBA, who happened to be a Genovese Fellow winner.
Mm-hmm.
I fired him. He was no good running a business, but he was a great idea man. Sold it to a private equity firm, broke even. He came back to me 3 years later. He says, "Look, I've changed. I've designed this new thing," and so I backed him again with a couple of friends, and we just sold it to private equity. So,
Nice.
There is a second chance at the apple. For
Okay.
you people that have failed, failure
Yeah.
is okay. Just never repeat it. I actually have some lessons I've written up that I'll read off. First things, for acquisitions, those interested in buying businesses, I use this in my class. Mortal sin number one: you don't overpay. You cannot overpay, and
All right.
and you'll learn what the right prices are if you go to some kind of classes. Because if you overpay, all you do is work for the bank an extra 3 years, and it's not your money until you own the whole thing. You buy assets, not shares. You buy assets, therefore, you don't buy the corporate shell that exists at the time, which could have all kinds of bad stuff in it. And if you own those shares, you own the company and everything they did all the way back to when they were founded, including IRS troubles, et cetera. Okay, what exactly are they selling? It sounds like a stupid idea, but you make sure you know what they're selling. Sometimes they have assets they want to keep, and you want them. Pay for the past, and you sell the future. They're trying to sell the future. You're paying for the past.
Got it. I like that
it.
lesson.
I love it.
That's
That's
a good
great.
lesson. That's
And
a
by
good
the
lesson.
way,
Yeah.
if it's so good, like they say, why don't you keep it?
Yeah, right.
I love
And
it.
then be a subchapter S or an LLC. That's not as valuable as it used to be, given the tax law changes that happened in the last 5 or 6
Right.
years. Okay, top lessons to success:
All right.
hard
it.
work, hard work,
Hard work.
drive, and ambition. I hope you heard some of that.
Yeah.
Tenaciousness, you never give up. No, doesn't matter. Education as much as you can. Networking is important. All the people you meet. I found most of the businesses through people who knew people.
Right.
You're not going to be given a business to buy. Luck has to come in it. The currencies that sat overseas were worth $5 million, and we never knew it.
Yeah.
Get experience first. The 3 legs to the stool. Inconvenience and hardship are just part of the road to success. If you're going to do turnarounds, actually, I'd say if you're going to own and operate a business, your family life is going to suffer. If you're going to succeed, your family life is going to
We
suffer.
don't know anything about that, do we?
No
Alex?
idea. Yeah.
And for certain age groups out there, you don't want to do it. The
Right.
Gen X's, whatever. The newer ones coming up are working harder. But I think the people just below us, wartime people, whatever we're called.
Right.
The next group just they don't want to work. They want 9 to 5. And we find that out by trying to hire. It was really hard to hire. Mistakes are part of learning. Just don't repeat them. And the wealthier you become, the more you can give back.
Yes, sir.
Those
Great.
are my lessons.
Love them. Those are great lessons.
You have last questions for me?
No, I think every time we talk to you, we get inspired. So appreciate you sharing. I think our viewers and listeners will appreciate you sharing. And thanks for being with us.
Okay.
And we'll see you
Take
later.
care.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
We're very grateful that Frank Genovese chose to be with us in this great educational podcast. Frank's got just a long history, Alex, right?
He sure does, yeah.
And learn a lot every time we talk to him.
His lessons for success are amazing, and everybody should stay tuned.
Yeah, well, anyway, thanks for being with this podcast with Alex Fink, the one and only Alex Fink. I mean, look at this guy.
You can tell.
He's it. He is it.
Yeah.
Yes. We are excited about this podcast, and we will see you in the next one.